The UFC is home of the greatest MMA fighters on the planet. That's the organization that upcoming fighters strive to be a part of. They're the NBA, NFL, and MLB of fighting, being regarded as the highest level of competition. But not all fighters get the illustrious career they dream of. Some deal with injuries, bad losses, or just business moves made by the UFC. I've done a video on this before, but one video wasn't enough. I'm back to talk about 5 more fighters that had unfortunate UFC careers. Starting this video off, we got a young karate superstar in Sage Northcutt. Sage entered the UFC after being featured on Dana White's Looking for a Fight. He was a 5-0 19-year-old when he made his debut in the UFC, winning his first fight by knockout in 57 seconds. Then, 2 months later, he won his second fight by submission. He got a ton of praise and hype from Dana White in the UFC, and he lived up to it. Then just over a month later, he dropped a submission loss to Bryan Barberena, both fighters having their third fight in the UFC. But no biggie. Sage fought 3 times in 4 months. He was bound to drop one of them. At 20 years old, Sage was just getting his career started. So what exactly happened? Fast forward a couple years, and Sage just finished 8 fights in the UFC, going 6-2 and winning his last 3. His contract was up, and he was hoping to get a new contract from the company. All of a sudden, there's some trouble in the negotiations. Northcutt's management wanted a lot more money than Dana was willing to pay, and the two couldn't come to a deal. Dana then said,
"Yeah, no, Sage is, we let Sage go. Sage is young, and Sage needs some work. So let him get some work in one of these other organizations, and we'll see where this kid ends up in a couple of years, and maybe we'll pick him back up again."
Sage signed with one championship in 2019, losing his first fight by knockout in 29 seconds and suffered a lot of facial injuries in that fight. He came back 4 years later to win his next fight by submission in 39 seconds, but it seems as if all his hype died down and is unlikely to see him back in the UFC. At 28 years old, he's looking to get to where everyone thought he'd be, but it seems to be over for that now. Next on this list, we got former light heavyweight title challenger Dominick Reyes. Reyes was on a tear when he first got to the UFC, having a 12-0 record with 7 knockouts and 2 submissions. With key wins over Chris Weidman and Volkan Ozdemir, Reyes got his title shot in 2020 against the MMA GOAT, John Bones Jones. Before the fight, there was all this talk about the young guy coming to take the old guy's place.
This is about Dominick Reyes and my journey in the gold belt. As long as I get that gold, that's all that matters to me. That's all that's ever mattered to me.
During the fight, it looked like that was coming true, as Dominick Reyes was piecing Jones on the feet. In a controversial decision though, John Jones won the fight, but Reyes was the people's champion. That's why after John Jones vacated the light heavyweight championship to move up to heavyweight, he was immediately put into the fight against Jan Blachowicz for the belt once again. With how Reyes looked against John Jones, surely he was going to win the belt this time, right? Despite Reyes being the favorite, Jan Blachowicz had something different to say, as he knocked out Reyes in the second round to win the undisputed light heavyweight belt. But Reyes is far from done, as he's still only 30 years old at this point. They put him against Yuri Prochazka, who was having his third fight in the UFC at the time. Reyes was looking good in the first round, but it all came crashing down after that. Yuri throws a spinning elbow that clips Reyes on the side of the head and knocks him out cold. That sent Reyes out of title contention, losing his last 3 fights and being knocked out in the last 2. Reyes took a year and a half off to get his mind right and hopefully have some type of reset. He was booked against Ryan Spann in an attempt to get back in the winning column, but it was the complete opposite. Spann knocked out Reyes with a jab in the first round, and it looked like Reyes' UFC career is done. That fight was in 2022, and Reyes is now 34 years old without a fight on a 4-fight skid. It just sucks to see that if one decision changes, his whole career is different. He goes down as the guy who beats the GOAT, and maybe makes a couple title defenses. It sucks to see. The third fighter I got on this list is former heavyweight champ Cain Velasquez. Cardio Cain was a monster in the UFC, knocking out 12 of his 14 wins. He won the heavyweight belt against Brock Lesnar, knocking him out in the first round. However, this is where the unfortunate things start to unfold for Velasquez. After the Lesnar fight, he found out he had a torn rotator cuff that would keep him out for 8 months. Over a year passes by, and he finally makes his first title defense against Junior Dos Santos, where he lost by knockout in the first minute of the fight. After the fight, it turns out he re-injured his shoulder a week before and tore his meniscus as well, so he was going in injured. After those injuries, Cain was back on the winning train, beating Antonio Silva and Junior Dos Santos twice, both with ease. After the third Dos Santos fight, Cain was forced to miss almost 2 years with another torn meniscus and sprained MCL in his right knee. He fought in 2015 against Fabricio Verdum, where he lost by submission and lost his belt again. Cain was then booked the rematch, but had to pull out due to injury again. He knocked Travis Browne out next. Then he was supposed to fight for his belt back against Verdum. But as his whole career has gone, Cain was forced to pull out due to injury, not being able to pass the physical due to bone spurs in his back. This is in 2016 at this point. Cain wouldn't fight until 3 years later in 2019 against Francis Ngannou, where he'd be knocked out in less than 30 seconds. He suffered a freak knee injury on his way down from the knockout, pretty much summarizing his whole career at that point. Velasquez became champ in 2010. After that, he had 8 fights in 9 years due to injuries in his shoulder, knees, and back. Who knows what more we could have seen from Cardio Cain if he managed to stay healthy. Another former champ that I want to talk about is Cody Garbrandt. The former bantamweight champ was on his way to stardom in 2016, knocking out Augusto Mendez, Thomas Almeida, and Takeya Mitsugaki in the first round. He was an exciting fighter that was 25 years old, and he was not scared to talk smack about the fighters on the roster, including former teammates. That's when he got his title shot against bantamweight GOAT at the time, Dominick Reyes. Everybody thought Dominick Reyes was going to wipe the smile off this young buck's face in this fight, but it turned out to be the complete opposite. Garbrandt made Dominick Reyes look absolutely foolish, dancing the whole time, knocking Reyes down twice, and winning the belt by unanimous decision at the young age of 25. The future was bright for Cody. His first title defense was against former teammate TJ Dillashaw. Tensions were high because TJ decided to leave Team Alpha Male for another gym, which upset everyone at that gym, including Cody Garbrandt. The fight happens, and Garbrandt gets knocked out in the second round, completely derailing his hype train. But because the first fight was such a big money draw, they decided to do a rematch. Cody Garbrandt is hoping to get his belt back in the rematch, but it turned out worse for him. TJ Dillashaw didn't want to wait until the second round this time, so he knocked Cody out in the first. It didn't look good for Cody, but it didn't look too bad either. It just looked like he couldn't beat TJ Dillashaw. But this is where it starts getting unfortunate for Cody Garbrandt's career. He gets booked against Pedro Munoz as a way to get back into the title picture, but suffered his third straight knockout loss. Time goes by, and Cody Garbrandt loses 5 out of 6 fights after winning the belt, and he just couldn't get back in the win column. What sucks the most out of everything in his career is that he was so charismatic and exciting to watch that every MMA fan wants to watch him fight. Terrible that he couldn't just win. The last person on this list is the former heavyweight champ Frank Mir. Frank Mir was with the UFC from their inception, all the way back to UFC 34 in 2001. He was a submission specialist, getting 9 of his 19 wins that way. Mir won the heavyweight belt in 2004 against Tim Sylvia by snapping his arm with a straight armbar. Frank Mir was on the path of one of the best heavyweights of all time, but what happened next ruined that. 3 months after the Sylvia fight, Frank Mir got into a motorcycle accident that broke his femur and tore all the ligaments in his knee. He was stripped of his title and wouldn't fight until 2 years later, where he'd lose by knockout. Mir would fight for the UFC for 15 years, and got a couple wins here and there, but he didn't look the same after that accident. It's unfortunate to see that in a promising career like Frank Mir's. Let me know if I missed anybody in the comments. All that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.